Welcome to session 8 of our 9-session series this fall. I guess we're moving into winter now. But session 8 today we are going to focus on mind. Session 7 we did an exercise with body and pain, and today we're going to look at mind. And I'm going to be using the resource that I referred to in one of my earlier sessions, the Integral Life Practice book. In this book there are several modules for spiritual practices that can help to get us sort of living more integrally, lining up, as Parker Palmer would say, lining up our role and soul. And so today I'm going to focus on the mind, and I'm going to work with the 1-minute module States of Consciousness, a quick tour. Before I start, I'm just going to make reference to the states that Wilber refers to. He talks about 3 different states: gross, subtle, and causal. And the gross motor state, when we're in the gross motor state, we are basically sort of awake and conscious of what we're doing, and our primary focus, you might say, is the sensory experience. So the smell, touch, taste, sight, movement, so kinetics, I can't remember what the word is. But this awareness of our physicality in the space, that's the gross state. The subtle state is when we drop a little bit more into an awareness of our emotional state and the feeling state that we are currently in. So the affect, sadness, irritation, depression, gloominess, joy, lighthearted humor, that sort of feeling and awareness of our emotional state. And then when we move into the causal state, we then kind of distance ourselves just slightly. And you can think of it as above, or you can think of it as deeper. Some people refer to it as being kind of higher, looking down on. In my case, I tend to think of it as being deeper within and being conscious of being a witness to my experience, both the physical and the emotional. So the causal state is an attentiveness to the perspective that isn't me, but an observer. It's difficult to find language for this because, and many spiritual teachers that I listen to find the same, that language very much is limited when it comes to describing this. So you kind of have to find that state for yourself and then articulate it in the way that makes most sense for you. But I'm going to invite you into this exercise today to help us sort of explore those 3 different states of consciousness. So the first thing we're going to do is to put our attention onto the 5 senses in the physical realm that we're in. So we are in our body presence in the space that we're in, seated in the seat that we're in the context that we're in, and so we engage all our senses in the environment. What is the smell? What do we notice the smells to be like? What do we see in the space? Is it light? Is it dark? What other qualities might you think of when you look in the room? And then what is the sound? It's very quiet in the space I'm in right now. There might be some sounds outside the room that you can become aware of. And then maybe you're even conscious of your own breathing. I'm conscious of the fact that I'm speaking and I can hear my own voice. So I'm not sure if I covered all the senses, perhaps taste and that might be something right now, or just to notice the experience. Is your mouth dry? Is the breath when you take it in cool? All of those kinds of sensory experiences. So you just sort of spend some time noticing the physicality and the sensory experience of being in your body, in the space, and what you notice about all of that. part of the physical or the gross state of consciousness is noticing too the experience of being in your body and the sensations that are there. If there's any pain, discomfort, we often begin with that state in the meditation, and we do a check-in with our bodies, and we might notice places of pressure, tension, heat, cold, any other sensations. And all you're simply doing, engaging in this state, is just becoming aware of it. And I find often for myself, when I'm distracted by strong emotions or reactivity, that if I put my attention on the physicality of my experience, it helps sometimes take me out of the reactivity. So let's say I'm driving in the car and somebody cuts me off or whatever, and I feel this sudden rising up of irritation and annoyance and even anger. And instead of, becoming conscious of that, instead of reacting to it, reacting to the reaction, if you will, then what I'll do is I'll simply put my focus on my body and my presence in my car, and where my hands might be touching the steering wheel, what might be playing on the radio, just focus again on my breath and my breathing. Anything to sort of take me away from that reactivity so that I can reapproach the situation from a place of peace or groundedness. So now we're going to transition and go to more of the subtle states by turning our attention to the sensations that are associated with the emotions that we're experiencing. So we're going to look inward and notice how we're feeling with our affect. Are we feeling joyful? Are we feeling sad? Are we feeling lonely? Is there a sense of lingering anxiety or unsettledness from something that happened earlier in the day? Are we feeling a sense of calm and peace because of something that has happened early in the day, or something that happened to resolve something that was troubling, and so now maybe you have a sense of peace and resolution? There's different ways of describing how we feel, and the more language we can develop to help us with naming our emotions helps us to become more conscious at this subtle state. You might then, once you sort of identify that feeling, you might notice where the energy lives for that emotion in your body. Often, if we're angry or irritated, often we'll feel a tightness and whatnot up in the top part of our body. In the upper body, that sort of attack mode tension will live up above. If we're feeling more at peace, we might feel more of a sense of flow or ease in the lower parts of our core. So you might notice different levels of energy in different parts of your body relative to that emotional experience. And this is the subtle state. You might also begin to be aware of the way in which there may be vibrations of energy that emerge from that experience of that emotion, that you can almost begin to become aware of them a little bit moving outside of your body. So it's simply just spending the time with that, with the emotion, with noticing its energy, perhaps its vibration, and then to notice sort of where is that energy flowing. Is it flowing up and out? Is it flowing down? Is it flowing out to the sides? Where is that energy moving? Is it stuck? Is it not moving? Does it seem to be pulsating in a certain part of your body? That's engaging with the subtle state of consciousness. There's another level of awareness on a different plane with regards to the subtle state of consciousness, and that is the memories or ideas or images that emerge, or the impulses that emerge in response to our emotions, or are maybe triggered by our emotions. And you can feel more, it's described as an intuitive kind of energy level. And it may be, it's a little bit that energy that's outside of the body. It's where that's going, where that movement might be moving towards. What is it moving towards? And so you can sit in that energy and notice where it's moving, where that idea that might be coming up, or that memory might be coming up, and what is it triggering, and where is that energy going? Then the next level is the causal level. When you become more of a witness, so you're less engaged in sort of interacting with your physicality and your senses and the emotions and the thoughts and all of those things. Now you're almost sort of stepping back. So as I said, some people think of it as stepping higher up to look down. Myself, I think of it as sitting deeper in myself, either sort of in my core and then becoming a witness, almost like I'm watching whatever the reality is of my sensory experience and my emotions and the story I'm telling me, or the images, etc. And I sit back and I observe from within at a core, deeper level. So you will find where your orientation is, but the key, that is less important than being able to be a witness to all of this. So it becomes then these physical experiences, the sensory experiences, the emotions, the images, the ideas, the memories, all of those things become less identified with you, and you are instead an observer of them. And this is a really critical transformational state of consciousness, because it allows you to then reapproach yourself in the way that you most want to. If you want to change your reactivity, for example, so when you're noticing that you've got this irritation, and then as you deepen your subtle consciousness, you become aware that you've got a story attached to this anger that maybe you're carrying, or this irritation. And being able to step into the causal state allows you to then reapproach the story and your irritation from a place of objectivity, in a sense. And it's an inner place of peaceful objectivity. So the deeper essence of you has no concern over me and mine and winning, or winning the argument or getting justice. It's simply observing and aware and calm. So it can re-inform you as to how, give you the space, perhaps is a better way of saying, give you the space in which to sit and rest and observe. So that perhaps you could reapproach yourself, perhaps with compassion and kindness, and speak to yourself from that place in a way that's comforting and soothing. Or you just simply rest in that space, and all of that irritation dissolves. So that's going into the causal state. It's described in the book here. It's a stillness, it's a causal state of formless awareness, unlimited, unbounded. It's radically free and full, complete and perfect. And essentially, you might say that all the meditation practices that this series has been engaged in has been helping you to get to that causal state, to that place where you are connected to the unlimited essence that you truly are, the beingness, as Wilbur describes, that carries with it an inherent wisdom, and then informs our ego identities and reframes all the situations that we might be in, so that we can reapproach them in the way we would ideally like to. And it doesn't happen that once you've mastered this, you can always manage it. There are still going to be times when you're reactive and you're in the gross state of consciousness, and the lower brainstem kicks in, fight or flight, and and that happens. You react and you say something or what have you. But the more you practice engaging in the causal state of consciousness, the better able you are to, especially in non-crisis situations, if you just practice on a regular basis, that connection or the ability to go to that place of observation and witnessing becomes more automatic. So practicing does make a difference. And meditation helps us get there. So it's the time of year right now. We're in the middle of December, and there's lots of pressures on us to do and buy and be places, interacting with people some people we like, some people we don't, family members who trigger us, irritate us, disappoint us. All of those things are going to be going on over the course of the season's activities and what have you. Whether it be the Christmas shopping or preparing for family gatherings or Hanukkah or whatever other religious celebrations might be going on. There's always pressures and demands for how we interact with one another and what the expectations are. Loads of expectations put on us. So I invite you to take some time to just sit. And you can go through the process of noticing the gross state of consciousness and the physicality and the senses, and then peel it back and go into the subtle, noticing the emotions, noticing the energy and where it's moving, whether it's stuck, and then stepping up or in to that place of observation where there is essentially nothing. There's no thing there. There's simply beingness, presence, as Eckhart Tolle would say, beautiful presence, peacefulness. You might notice when you are in that state, the conscious awareness of the way, you might touch into the gross state and notice the shift in the body and its energy, or its sensations. Notice, the more subtle state of the changing the affect. Once you're, looking from that causal place, it can sometimes shift the emotions or the energy of the emotions that you are aware of. So I invite you to play with that. Play with moving into and out of all these different states. And for those of you who are interested in sort of the science of all of this, you can, there have been many studies and much research has gone into figuring out how this all affects the brain, and in fact, moving through to different parts of the brain and the neural pathways in the brain. They notice that there's a shift from the triggering of neurons in some parts of the brain are associated with each of these different levels. So there is something very neurological going on as a part of this process. So for now, I'm going to leave all that with you. I wanted to mention that someone had called and asked about wanting to learn more about spiritual direction, and I'm happy to share whatever I can with you about spiritual direction. I am a spiritual director as well as a minister, and went through considerable training to become a spiritual director. If you'd like to know more about spiritual direction and what that's about, it's it's non-religious, let's say. It's more spiritual. So for those of you who are spiritual, not religious, you'll like that. You can just email me at leanne@northleaunited.ca, leanne@northleaunited.ca, and I'd be happy to share with you what I know and how to connect with a spiritual director. So I leave all that with you. Let's just take a couple of deep breaths. Sit for a moment in the stillness and the quiet. Just focusing on your breath for a moment. I'm just going to wrap up today with simply a reminder that no matter what we might be going through, whatever the challenges might be that we are facing in these days and times, that there is a vastness to us that is deeper than and beyond the day-to-day frustrations or difficulties. There is an unlimited place for us to be, wherein we can connect with our true essence and find our peace. And in that place is the courage and strength and humor, even, that we need in order to face all that is before us. May you in these days find that space, and may it be your respite in a very hectic time of year. I want to thank you once again for joining me. This was session 8 of 9, and next time we meet, I'll be focusing more on spirit once again, with probably a little teaching and instruction and a little bit of a chance to connect with spirit. So thanks once again for joining me, and season's blessings.